So, Dare to Lead Differently, Chew on This, 16 Bites for Bold Leaders, is a book that I realized when I was in the military.
Meet Twanda E. Young, a revered leader and a visionary in modern leadership practices.
More self-awareness training for our leaders to be able to be better leaders for our soldiers. So thus, now that I got a little bit more time on my hands, retired, I decided to launch LT3 Leadership Solutions for that purpose.
Recently spotlighted across Las Vegas for her leadership prowess.
The essence that I really like to push is start strong, end stronger, keeping the main thing the main thing.
Author of Dare to Lead Differently, she distills her military and life experiences into 16 powerful bites for bold leaders. Twanda doesn't just speak. She engages, inspires, and transforms her audience. Experience the power of her bold leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Twanda E. Young.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you may be listening in. I am ecstatic to be in your presence. I'm Brigadier General retired Twanda E. Young, founder and CEO of LT3 Leadership Solutions. And I get the honor today to be with you. And we're going to talk about some information I know is going to help you be a better leader. What are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to talk about your leadership currency, the value of your leadership currency. Now, I know you're saying, well, what is leadership currency? What is she talking about? What are you talking about, General? Well, I'm glad that you want to know more about the value of your leadership currency. When I talk about the value of leadership currency, here is what I mean. Your leadership currency. What I mean is really what is already depicted on the slide, but let me break it down just even more. It is your knowledge, skills, and abilities, and how you take your knowledge, skills, and abilities and utilize them to add value to others. Think about it kind of like the stock exchange, right? On the stock exchange, you go up, you go down, but in your leadership currency, you're trying to keep your leadership acumen at a certain level. It's how you motivate your teams. It's how you build trust. And it's how you resolve conflict. You know, everyone thinks that every conflict can be resolved. It cannot, but it can be managed. And how you manage it can increase or decrease your leadership currency. It's a driving change in your organization of how you lead your people. Leadership currency. Now that we all are on the same playing field as to what leadership currency is, knowledge, skills, and abilities that you utilize to influence others for the greater good, let's move on to the next area that we're going to talk about, which is talking about how you cultivate your leadership currency and where does it stem from. Basis or foundation of your leadership currency, we have to look at your leadership philosophy. You know, if I asked you, what is your political philosophy? You probably could rattle it off. If I asked you, what is your religious philosophy? You probably could rattle it off. Even if you say, I don't believe, I'm not a believer. That not believing is a part of your philosophy and how you utilize your leadership or shape your leadership in order to influence others. And it makes up who you are. So your leadership philosophy is the cornerstone of your leadership currency. Our past experiences, our knowledge we've gained, different insights, mentorship, coaching that you may have received, your childhood, all of those things that you have experienced through life, they shape your leadership philosophy. And if you don't know what your leadership philosophy is, I encourage you to sit down, draw, say a shield in the center. And what I want you to do is put 4 things that are valuable to you. For me, that could be a symbol of a cross. My spiritual faith is a part of my leadership philosophy. A bridge. A bridge denotes for me being able to be a facilitator or a helper of helping people reach their goals, helping and guiding people to get to their end state that they desire. The other that would be in my shield would also be a boot. because the boot represents for me structure. That's what the military has taught me over 33 years, structure and organization and making decisions and being strategic. But those boots have a lot of meaning in it for me. And then, believe it or not, the last thing, if I had to pick four, the last thing is the house in which I grew up in. Because there is where my foundation was laid by my parents, Miss Annie and Mr. Willie James Williamson Jr. There is where my foundation was paid for me. So that is where my leadership philosophy grows from. Trust, structure, the lessons learned through my childhood, morals and values, and being a bridge for others is where my leadership philosophy flourishes most. So I want you to take a moment, draw a shield, and put in there four things, four symbols. You don't have to be a great artist, because believe me, I'm not. But I want you to draw those things or write those things that are important to you, because that begins to build the foundation of your leadership philosophy that you would then share with your people to help them visualize why they do what they do, why you lead the way you lead, why do you guide them in a certain way. It's because this is your foundation. Does that make sense? Good. Now let's move on to the next area of building our leadership philosophy, but also increasing the value of our leadership currency. There's a story I want to tell you that I think is very appropriate to kind of shape and share structural wise what I'm talking about when I'm saying leadership currency. I had a few soldiers that were depending on me to ensure that they got the resources that they needed in order to do a particular mission. And this mission happened to be COVID. Remember COVID? That nasty bug? COVID was our focus. And I had a very short and limited time in order to pull a team together and develop the processes and procedures we needed in order to bring people that serve the military, but they're in the Army Reserve, so they work in the reserve half time. In their civilian lives, they're doctors, they're lawyers, etc. But our focus was on the medical area, where I had to develop a medical augmentation unit. Well, to do that required for my people to trust. Remember, in my shield, I have trust. To trust that I was going to be able to get the resources, get the stakeholders to buy in, and support our efforts. I also had to be a great facilitator of communicating the needs and guiding them through the process of what needed to occur in short order in order for us to get what we needed done, to get the people in place throughout the world. So I pulled on my morals and values that were taught to me when I was young. Treat people like you want to be treated. Treat them with dignity and respect. Even though we had to work long hours, I was very respectful that the soldiers and civilians and contractors that worked for me who had families, I tried not to keep them longer than I needed to. And also back to that, the trust, the bridge, my home, and my spiritual faith helped me be able to be sensitive to those around me that were going through COVID as they tried to help me plan putting an augmentation cell together. Their family members were being impacted. That's very hard. But my leadership currency had risen so high that they trusted me and that I could guide them through this process, that I cared for them, that I showed empathy for them. All of that increased my leadership currency. But it all ties back to my leadership philosophy. Now, we all have crucibles, I call them, challenges that we go through in life that can kind of make us topsy-turvy sometimes as we go about leading others, and sometimes can make us doubt ourselves. I recalled a particular event when I first came into the military as a second lieutenant, just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And in the civilian sector, you would kind of say that I came in as a junior VP into the organization. And as I was in the organization, I was, like I say, on Sesame Street, and I know my hair kind of dates me, but in Sesame Street, if you remember, it was one of those things that don't look like the other. And that's what I was within my unit. I was the only female officer out of a plethora of male officers doing the same job as executive officers for their respective units. I remember standing literally, as the picture depicts, standing at the base of a rappel tower. And I had to meet my officer, my senior executive, if you will, and report to him and tell him what was going on in the training, what was happening, where we were in the training. And I remembered our conversation veered into longevity in the military. And out of that conversation, he told me, looked me dead in the eye, and told me that I had no right and that he was going to do everything that he could to ensure that I didn't make it to the next level. Was it because I was a woman? Was it because I was Black? Was it because I was short? I don't know. Really didn't care in that moment. What just startled me is that a leader that I was told that was going to take care of me, that was going to mentor, coach, and teach and guide me, didn't have any belief in me and was going to do everything within his authority to make sure that I did not succeed. His leadership currency for me was low, extremely low. But I remember back to that picture I told you of how my philosophy began, that house of where I was taught by my mom and dad to be very focused in on my goals, to be intentional in my commitment to what I was doing in life, and to be decisive and disciplined in any decision that I made. And I stood there flat-footed and I told them, I'll be here, sir, when you retire. Well, long story short, I was there when he retired. But that experience shaped my leadership philosophy. It shaped me because I wanted to make sure that I was never that person to the people that I had the honor to lead. I never wanted them to walk away with a very belittling and demeaning kind of dejected feeling because of me. Now, I have no issues with correcting people, but there's a way in which you correct people. You don't do it out in the public. You don't berate them. You're constructive in what you share with them and how you share it. You share it in a way that shares empathy and shares your genuine concern for their well-being and for their growth as a leader. But every experience since that time has shaped my leadership philosophy. And I know you're saying, well, why are you holding on to this leadership philosophy? Because this is your foundation. And if your house is shaking, everything else is going to fall. So I want you to understand that the bedrock of your leadership currency is on your leadership philosophy and how you cultivate that through self-awareness and attending events like this, seeding in and investing into yourself. Think for a moment, what kind of experiences or challenges or your base of rappel tower moment that you've had that you have garnered some insights from that make you a better leader or that could make you a better leader to ensure you're not repeating what was done to you if it was not favorable. Base of rappel tower moment. So as your leadership currency grows, there are certain things of components. What are the key components? Well, from my perspective, the key components of your leadership currency is how well do you know your craft? How well do you know your job? How well do you do your job? How well do you execute? Then how do you communicate? How do you communicate to those who have the responsibility of taking your vision and making it come to reality? Are you a good communicator? I want you to write down yes or no. I won't see it and I won't tell anyone. I promise. But you need to be very clear with yourself on how well do you communicate your guidance. The other item that is extremely important is, can you be trusted? How trustworthy are you? And how trustworthy would you say your people see you? On a scale of 1 to 5, where would you put yourself? At a 1 being the lowest, or 5 being the highest? Or is there some work to be done in there? Only you know. We all can improve upon how we lead as we learn and grow and not become stagnated. When we fall down, dust ourselves off, get up and try something anew to be able to be a better leader, because your people, I can't say this enough, your people deserve great leaders. So look at how well you know your craft. How well do you communicate? And are you trustworthy? Those are kind of like the pillars of your currency. Because in that, if you can be trusted, if you know your job well, if you communicate well, you can continue to build your leadership currency within your organization among senior leaders that see you doing your job, executing it well. They want you on their team because you are leading in a way that is being received well. I'm not saying that every day is going to be sunshine, because we learn again from our experiences and from challenges. But it's not how you fall down, it's how you get up, and it's how you react to what has happened to you. So the pillars of your leadership currency: your expertise, knowing your craft, your ability to communicate effectively, and are you trustworthy? Does your video, as my daughters would say, match your audio? Or is there silence on the end because you're not what you say you are? Your leadership currency. Assessing your leadership currency is equally important as making sure that you understand your leadership philosophy that we talked about earlier. Why do I say that? Because it allows for you to gauge and monitor where you are and to be realistic as to what it is that you really need to work on to be a better leader. There are 5 questions I want you to ask yourself that will help you frame a plan to move forward in enhancing your leadership currency. First question I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to be honest. And sometimes it's not easy for us to just talk it out, so I encourage you to write it down. What are your strengths and weaknesses as a leader? If you answer that truthfully, that will help you build the strongest and most robust plan you can for becoming a better leader. What are those things that you need to work on? The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what are my skills and abilities, my area of expertise? What do I know, whether I'm sleeping or I'm awake? I know what I know, and I can teach it to anyone. I can guide anyone. I can coach anyone to be able to do their job effectively because I know my craft well. Then take that information, because those are your building blocks on the next question. How well do I deal with people internal and external to the organization? And you can take this for in your personal life. How well are you leading in the civic organizations you belong to, at church, your softball team that your child may be a part of, the Brownies, the Little League, whatever it is? How well are you building relationships and cultivating those relationships and strengthening them to help you be a better leader, a better conduit for support for others to be able to reach their goals because of your guidance and your support? And another question that I want you to really think about is, what is your personal brand? When people talk about you, what do you want them to say? Put that on one side of the sheet. And then on the other side of the sheet, what do you think they're saying? And then really look at that information and digest it and chew on it and develop a plan that is good for you to be able to put yourself on a trajectory of being a better leader. Answering those questions. Leadership development and conflict management at Bowie State University. I'm a professor there. And I will tell you, one of the things that I teach in my leadership development class that has helped a lot of my students, and I hope will help you. Well, I take back, I hope. I know it will help you if you put in the work for it and write down the information that applies to it for yourself. I call it the ESPN score. And no, I'm not talking about football. I don't know nothing about football, although I am a Cowboy fan. And that's about it, because my brother's a Cowboy fan. But your ESPN score, I'm talking about that in the perspective of your E stands for enumeration. Where are you competitively with your other counterparts in your organization? Back to, do you need to go back to school? Do you need to increase certifications? Where are you honestly on the playing field? Then the S ties into the schooling that you might be looking at or the certifications that you may need to get to shore up your knowledge, abilities, and skills. The P is your potential. What is your potential to be the leader you want to be? Are you willing to put in the effort? Are you willing to take constructive feedback? Are you willing to seek out those who have gotten to the end state you want to be and humble yourself enough to ask questions of those individuals and gain their insights on how they maneuvered the space and met their trajectory of being the leader they want to be, or on the path of being the leader they want to be? And the last is networking. All of this ties in again of being able to connect with other people. Who's on your board of directors, I call it? Who are the people that you can call very quickly and share your information, and then they give you some valued added insight to help you figure out how to develop a plan to move forward? These are the people, what I call on your board of directors. These are people that are not going to just tell you that you're doing great. They're going to tell you that you need to do more in this area. Have you considered this? Maybe you want to think about approaching this particular situation this way. Maybe you want to handle this particular employee that way to get better results. Who's on your board of directors? Do you have a board of directors? Those are things I want you to think about as you assess your leadership currency and the value that you want it to bring to others. Ooh, we have talked about a lot in this brief session, a lot of great information. But I'd like to do a quick recap just to help you kind of come down off that high for just a moment to remember the valued information that we've shared. Your leadership currency is a valuable asset to making you a better leader. By understanding your development and what you need to do to enhance your development, by taking the experiences that you have garnered throughout your life and putting that and melding that into your leadership philosophy to carve out the type of leader you want to be, and taking your unique blend of skills and abilities will only enhance your leadership currency, whereby allowing you to be able to drive change, positive change in your organizations, helping you to be able to inspire your people to greatness and achieve remarkable results through your leadership currency. I'm excited to see what's going to happen for you and through you as you continue to lead and move out smartly and execute the strategies and tips I've shared today. You are a great leader, and great leaders are continuous learners who continue to invest in their ability to be even greater. You got this.